Turkey is battling its most destructive blazes in living memory. Tens of thousands of people have been evacuated from coastal regions and huge swathes of forest destroyed. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has come under fierce criticism over the disaster. And DW's Julia Hahn reports now from Milas on the Aegean coast, where countless volunteers have joined the fight to contain the fires.
Eren Temren is not a forest worker. He is a tech consultant from Istanbul. A week ago, he dropped everything and rushed to southern Turkey to join the fight against the wildfires. Now, he and his friends are helping authorities here in Milas on the Aegean coast to build fire breaks, areas free of vegetation that act as barriers to stop the flames from spreading. The fires grow very fast. I have never seen anything like this before. In some places, it really looks like scenes from hell. I couldn't just sit at home and watch. I had to come here and do something. Chainsaws, helmets, protective glasses. Eren and his friends have paid for the equipment out of their own pockets. They are among thousands of volunteers from across the country who have joined efforts to contain the blazes and help those affected. Turkey hasn't seen such devastating wildfires in decades. I believe that some of them were caused intentionally. But of course, the climate crisis and the hot weather also play a role. When it all comes together, it leads to disaster. A disaster firefighters have been struggling to get under control. Over the past days, dramatic scenes have unfolded as desperate villagers and volunteers stepped in to help contain blazes raging near their doorsteps. The extent of the destruction in the fire-hit regions is unprecedented. The flames have turned huge tracts of forests and fields into grey landscapes. According to estimates, at least 100,000 hectares have been destroyed, an area bigger than the German capital Berlin.
Hardly any green trees, as far as the eye can see. And the people who survived this inferno are increasingly asking, how could it come to this? And what is the government doing to make sure it won't happen again?
Local Mayor Muhammed Tokat, a member of Turkey's main opposition party, has been sounding the alarm for days. The flames nearly destroyed a thermal power plant in his district. On this parking lot, he and his team are now coordinating aid for those affected by the fires. Tokat says the region did not receive the help needed from the central government. We are in a very dramatic situation. It's unacceptable that a powerful state like Turkey does not own any functioning firefighting planes. We wouldn't have lost that much forest if we had more planes ready when the blazes first erupted. We are facing a worst-case scenario, and we were not prepared for it. In the forest of Milas, Eren Temren and his friends are taking a short break. They have been working non-stop the few last days, in temperatures of around 40 degrees Celsius. But now isn't the time for recriminations, Eren says. Now's the time to help stop the flames from spreading and save what's left of Turkey's forests.
And scientists also blame climate change for the wildfires devastating parts of neighboring Greece. Thousands have been evacuated from Evia, the second largest Greek island. Ferries and warships are moving people to safety as strong winds spread the flames. DW correspondent Barbara Wezel is near the capital, Athens. She spoke to the head of the Academy of Athens about the way forward.
We're here in the Academy of Science in Athens. It's the mother of all science academies. And with me is Professor Sinolakis. Today we saw the report of the IPCC, which is giving code red for mankind with regard to climate change. And we have spent the last days here in Greece looking at the devastation through the wildfires. Explain to us how the two things come together.
Unfortunately, we are already experiencing the effects of climate change, which we thought even a decade ago would be pushed out in the future in 2040 and beyond. This is unprecedented in Greece. Forest fires that last for a week or more. And it really goes to tell you what the heat waves can do. And one of the main concerns about the Mediterranean has been the duration of the heat waves in the future. If we continue on, I mean, this time we had a heat wave for 10 days, and you see what damage and what fires it has triggered. Imagine if this goes on 40 days over the entire summer, as some projections show for the turn of the century. So the time to act is now.
You say the time to act is now, but the governments have been hesitant. They weren't even really well prepared for this fire this year, even though everybody warned beforehand. So are politicians much too slow? Do they close their eyes? Do they don't want to know it? Or do they not know what to do?
I think politicians are simply not prepared for the scale of devastation. Politicians need to start understanding that if we don't act, this is the new normal, and perhaps it's already too late. What we need to do is stabilize the climate, try to stabilize the climate, so we do not see anything worse than we're seeing now.
Is there, Professor Sinolakis, still enough time to do that? Can this still be done? Because we seem to be really on the edge and almost toppling over. You walk through these devastated forests here around Athens and you think it's a nightmare. It has already happened.
I think we still have, in a nick of time. I mean, we're near the tipping point. As I said, what we need to try is basically stabilize the climate. Reversing it is out of the question for this century, even with our best efforts. But yes, there is a lot to be done to stabilize the climate, and also make the country and the entire world with nature-based solutions more resilient to extreme events.
Professor Sinolakis, thank you very much for your insights.
You're welcome.
Code Red for humanity. That's how the UN Secretary General described the report, its first since 2014. It states unequivocally that we are to blame for global warming. Greenhouse gas emissions from humans has driven the global temperature up by 1.1 degrees since 1850. And it's on course to pass the 1.5-degree limit already by 2030 unless rapid action is taken. Effects of the temperature rise have never been more visible. Wildfires are scorching parts of the planet, while severe floods have left other parts submerged. Still, the authors say it is not too late.
And so if we stop warming at 1.5 degrees, then we will also stop many of these extremes from getting worse. We can slow these changes down, and we can stop many of the others from getting worse by urgently and drastically reducing CO2 emissions in the next decade.
It comes as policymakers prepare for a crucial summit in November. Activists want them to honor their commitments.
This is absolutely down to governments, and there are only a few critical governments which are really important. The rich countries agreed more than 10 years ago to put a pot of money together to help developing countries deal with climate change. 10 years later, they have still not got that money together.
The UN panel says its report will be critical for negotiations at the upcoming summit. The future of our planet could hinge on its outcome.
Let's talk more about the findings of this IPCC report with Douglas Moran, a climate scientist and one of the authors of today's report. Good to have you with us. The findings are unnerving. Can we still get ahead of this?
Well, thanks a lot for the invitation. Yes, we can. So the report is quite clear about that if we start soon or immediately reducing greenhouse gas emissions at a large scale, then we still can meet the Paris Agreement, the 1.5 degrees.
Now, in 2014, the panel issued, I understand, a wake-up call. I understand not only has the outlook not improved, it has gotten worse. You alluded to the Paris Accords. Does this mean nothing changed since the Paris Accords?
Well, there was a report specifically on the 1.5 degrees in 2018 where they did a, let's say, more rough estimate when we would reach the 1.5 degrees. And now this has been refined, and it seems to be also because we had quite strong warming over the last years that this would happen potentially 10 years earlier than expected.
What would progress?
We need to
act now. What would progress look like?
Well, that's actually a question which will be answered next year by the other working group, which really lays out potential solutions. So my working group now just assessed what would happen if we are reaching different degrees of global warming. We didn't address the question what can be done to limit the warming.
Are you seeing a shift in public perceptions? I mean, we're having a very unsettled summer, wildfires and floods scattered around the globe. People are seeing the possible consequences of climate change. Do you see that people are that the awareness has been raised now when it comes to climate change?
I would say a major change was already happening because of Fridays for Future. This movement probably brought this the whole climate change issue more into the general public. So it helped to mainstream the issue. I don't know, probably also the recent events. I mean, they are just what we expect, in particular the heat waves we have in the droughts we have in the Mediterranean. They are just what we expect, so that's clear in the report.
What impact do you hope that this report will have?
Well, I mean, luckily, we managed to have it finished prior to the next COP in Glasgow. So, of course, I hope that it will be taken serious by policymakers and will be taken into consideration in their planning of the future of this planet.
Now, in terms of limiting climate change, can we get to a net zero world? Is that really an achievable goal, or is the issue today that we just have to adapt to a future of extreme weather events?
That's really beyond my expertise, really. I mean, I'm a natural scientist. We have got economists at the Institute who tell us that it's still possible to do that. And we will learn a lot more about that next year in spring when the third volume will come out of this report.
All right, Douglas Moran, a climate scientist and one of the contributors to the IPCC report. Thank you.
Thank you very much.